Well, a very good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to you, if I can actually speak, and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. I'm Anah Parreli. If you're not familiar with the channel and you haven't watched any of my videos before, I hope that you'll find something of interest for you. If you're a returning visitor, as always, I say thank you very much for being part of my journey. Now, just a simple request here, because I don't often go and look at, I can't remember what they call it in the YouTube channel where, oh gosh, what's it called? I do have these mind blanks every now and again. Basically the stats, that's the word I'm looking for, the statistics to see how well the videos are doing. I figure just let everything happen organically. But anyway, what I've noticed is there's not a lot of people that are actually responding to the content as far as liking. Subscriptions are going up, which is great. But either way, if you do like the content, can you just do a little bit of liking for me, please, so that I can I guess remain motivated and encouraged to continue to make this content. Now, because that would be very much appreciated. Anyway, getting back to today's video, fair warning, whether you're a newbie to the channel or whether you're a returning one, I have a feeling today's video is going to be a bit of a long one. So I'll apologize in advance, but there is a reason for this, which you will find out in a moment. In the meantime, I know time is important and valuable to everybody. So what I've done to, I guess, address this, and I do this in all of my videos because I do have tendencies to go down that rabbit warren, I've put timestamps in so you can jump to the parts that are of interest to you that you might find beneficial. And that's obviously in the description part when I load the videos up. Now, one of the reasons why, so I'll explain to you now why this might be a long video, is because it's actually a new crystal to me and I don't have it as part of my collection yet. And I notice the yet, I really want to invest in a piece for myself. But what I'm aware of is that there is a lot of fakes out there and it can actually be quite pricey. And we'll talk about that later in the video as well. So before I talk and jump into the stuff that I've learned, I've had to do a lot of research for this video. I do invite those people with basically on the ground knowledge who have seen or have been to Egypt and Libya where they're actually familiar with the crystal, because as I say, there's a lot of fakes out there. So I want to say, look, please do contribute. Please do leave a comment. If you feel that I say something wrong, correct me. Basically look at it as in you're doing me a favor, and anybody else that wants to buy this Libyan Desert Glass. And by the way, I'm going to refer to it as Golden Tektite going on further from here. If we want to buy it, then we want to make sure that we're actually buying the real deal. So anyway, let's crack on for today. So I guess the first question to answer is, why am I bothering to look at Libyan Desert Glass or Golden Tektite when I don't have any? Okay, well, the bottom line is that I'd never actually heard of it. It's not something I've ever actually seen before. And I learned about it actually by a response from somebody that had watched the Tibetan Tektite video. And they asked me, am I going to do a video on this? And I thought, and on Moldavite actually. I might do one on Moldavite, but I don't feel that's my area of expertise. And I have to be honest, I'm one of those people that often my purchases, my personal purchases, are made because I feel drawn towards a crystal. So because I'd never heard of Libyan Desert Glass, I did a quick Google and I saw the images, and I can tell you that my jaw hit the ground. I was awestruck, and immediately I had that, I want it. I've got to have it. This is important to me. I feel that I need it as part of my collection. Now, I can honestly say that my first thoughts, and I'm going to run through this as a process of motivation to buying a crystal and then understanding the metaphysical benefits of a crystal. And I just want to acknowledge the fact that for some people, metaphysics is not their thing. They're just like, it's a rock, it's a tektite, it's a fossil or whatever, and they're not interested in the rest of it. I also actually need to make mention that the dog's found his squeaky toy again and he's running rampant. I'll see how he goes and I'll push on. But anyway, so going back to the Golden Tektite, when I initially saw it, and it may be because this particular piece is being held up to the sun, my first thoughts were, oh my gosh, sun worshipping. Took me straight to the sun worshipping concepts, and my limited understandings of the Egyptians and sun worship. Either way, sun for me is associated with power. It's all about light. It's something I looked at many, many years ago, and there is so many components. I think I might have to do a pause for a moment. Basically, sorry about that, it's just the dog came by, he was a little bit busy with his toy. Anyway, the thing is, because I've spent so many years in areas where it's very hot and desert-like and arid, I do remember many years ago just sitting outside on a beautiful warm day thinking that, when everything else might be glum and grim and all the rest of it, if the sun is out and shining, there is something about it that actually restores emotion to the soul, shall we say. It makes us feel better when we're able to see the sun and when we've got clear blue skies. So in many ways, that was what prompted me to look at sun worshippers some time ago, because it just fills my soul with love when I can make that connection to the sun. So anyway, this was what I thought about when I saw Golden Tektite. So yes, of course, when I talk about the sun and what it means metaphysically to me, I'm actually already aware that sun worshipping is about power, strength, leadership, and what we would call, this was my immediate understanding or feelings, or you may as well say intuitive guidance about Golden Tektite, was that it was about the masculinized aspects of, say, the yin yang. When we talk about that, we're talking about the energies of power, protection, productivity, even reproduction and procreation. So anyway, I decided to start researching the crystal more and more and to learn more about it. So it should come as no surprise that my initial hunches were actually kind of correct. And this is because what we're now calling Golden Tektite was actually a favourite of the Egyptian pharaohs. What we're looking at here is a breastplate that was in King Tutankhamun's tomb, with the central piece being this carved golden tektite in the shape of a scarab beetle. Now remember, when it comes to the Egyptians, they were really big on symbolism. So to have the tektite carved as a scarab beetle, that also had symbolism as well. I just want to point out too that with this breastplate that you might not be able to tell, but it also contains malachite, lapis and carnelian, and these are all considered to be very powerful crystals. Now, we will look at the metaphysical qualities of the actual glass, and some of them are actually similar to the symbolism of the scarab beetle, and this is because back in Egyptian culture, the scarab reflected rebirth, regeneration, and the cycle of life. So under the best of circumstances, it's a very nice gesture to place a carving of a scarab beetle into the tomb of a person, especially when there is a belief in life after death. Now, for the Egyptian sun worshippers, though, there is the other association with the sun god. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be pronouncing this properly, but they believed in Khepri, is that how you pronounce his name? And there was a belief by these ancient Egyptians that he used to roll the sun across the sky in the same way that the scarab beetles would roll their dung balls. So it once again reflects the sun, as I say, the scarab beetle, and this ongoing cycle of life, if you like, this ongoing transformation. The soul was obviously seen like the phoenix that rises from the ashes. Now, other symbolism associated with, I think it was with the scarab, I'm looking at my notes here, is to do with manifestation, protection, and also the attraction of good luck and good fortune toward the pharaoh in the afterlife. Now, what I suspect is missed in the more modern or Western interpretations that I'm finding in regard to the meaning of the Golden Tektite is the associations with Ra, the sun god, okay, who is supposed to be the creator of all the gods and goddesses, and that includes Khepri, if I'm pronouncing his name right, the caretaker of the dawn and the sunsets. But let me just check my notes. I'm just reiterating here in my next set of notes that when we talk about Ra, we're talking about a creator God. And for any of us, regardless of our religious faith or persuasion, we will all believe in a creator God of some form. So for the Egyptians, it was Ra. If we were talking about applying Golden Tektite to our lives, we would use whatever name for the creator God feels appropriate to us. For the Christians, it might be God or Jesus. For others, it might be Jehovah, it might be Allah for the Muslims, etc., etc. Now, as always, if you've watched more than one video, I always link the crystals through to the Zodiac because it's very commonly done. However, I'm not fixated on the associations. I'm a big believer that if you feel drawn to a crystal, as I do with the Golden Tektite, then you buy it, you get it if you can lay your hands on it and in an affordable way. And we don't allow this to limit or impact on our buying or spending. I am not a Virgo, I'm not a Gemini. I'm very much drawn to the Golden Tektite. But anyway, there you go. So it's recommended for people that are of the Virgo sun sign or the Gemini sun sign. Now, before we start talking about the metaphysical attributes of Golden Tektite, let's just take a moment to really appreciate that the image here is of a particularly fine specimen. It's a very, if I can speak, fine sample. And as you see, there are all these inclusions in there. And apparently those little white balls, those are the inclusions, are what legitimizes a specimen to be Libyan Desert Glass or Golden Tektite. What I read was because those little white spheres are actually called cristobalite, if I understand it, and apparently that's the end product of quartz after it's had some really extreme high temperatures applied. To me, when I look at this, it just looks like a galaxy in itself. You know, it's just absolutely stunning. In fact, that's kind of like I would love to have that piece, but I have no idea how much it would actually cost. But anyway, getting back to the metaphysical properties, it's supposed to bear some really potent attributes that facilitate spiritual growth and expansion, and even a connection to ancient civilization. It's a stone, or believed to be a stone of I'm stumbling over my words today. Transformation and transmutation that allows a person to step into their personal power and achieve their divine potential, which is phenomenal. Okay, so it's believed to be a revealer of the plan and the pathway, and it will do this by providing access or supporting you to be able to access, once again, my pronunciation, Akashic records or Akashic. I'm not sure how we pronounce it. I just read it. It's also associated with the attributes of the Egyptian gods and goddess, or god and goddess, Osiris and Isis. Obviously, respectively, Osiris is associated with renewal, rebirth, fertility, growth, etc., while Isis was actually known for her metaphysical, the magical powers, and her roles in healing the sick and protecting the vulnerable. I mean, that's obviously a very condensed version of the attributes. But the other thing too is that it's believed to help a person access the higher realms and gain the wisdom. We're talking about source knowledge here. You know, there's a pool of knowledge that is referred to that we can gain access to by developing ourselves. And this includes a level of self-mastery and access to the psychic gifts. So it's not to be sneezed at, shall we say. Now, this is an area where I start to get very confused when I'm doing my research, because I don't feel that there's enough that's actually written on reputable websites for me to gain my information and knowledge from, shall we say, when it comes to purchasing. So the first thing is, when you look back at the other sample that I showed you on the metaphysical properties, the sample that's got the cristobalite inclusions in it, and the site that I went to for that, which unfortunately I didn't write it down, it actually said that it is the cristobalites, or the mineral inclusions in Golden Tektite, that actually makes it legitimate or authentic. Now, what we can see on this image here is that if there's inclusions in the yellow one, the image with the 3 tektites on it, I got that image from a website called De Barnstein Specialist. Looking at that, it's a Dutch website and it's a retailer, I believe, of tektites. So I originally thought, and I would like to think, that these people are still legitimate sellers. And the other thing that I found too is when I went to mine it, there is plenty of what they call Libyan Desert Glass or Golden Tektite on there that doesn't have any inclusions in it, which I find fascinating. That's where I start to get confused. So either way, I will share the information that I've got with you, which is not going to help us to be able to tell the genuine and the authentic from the fakes, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But either way, the Libyan Desert Glass is a tektite, as mentioned. It's also called Golden Tektite. It's believed to have a mineral hardness of between 5.5 to 6, so it's not super soft. It won't be easily scratched, but it is certainly, because it's a bit glassy-like, it's going to be, I would imagine, without having used it, easy to break, okay? Like glass, you drop it, it breaks, okay? From a transparency perspective, it's supposed to be transparent to opaque, so it's going to have a certain amount of light that comes through behind it, which you actually saw with the other image. Now, when it comes to the colours, I'm not even 100% sure on this as well. It can be apparently yellow, white, brown, or green. Look, this is where I think we need people from the area to actually stand up and say, look, no, that's not the case. Or yes, that is the case, or this is what we can expect. Now, when we talk about the area where it's sourced, okay, it is called Libyan Desert Glass, but let's look at the facts here that as far as where it's sourced, it's actually prevalent apparently in the vast area across the desert, about 72,000 square kilometres. And while we call it Libyan Desert Glass, apparently where the meteor landed was actually on what we would now call the border between Egypt and Libya. So this whole 72,000 square kilometres, part of it's in Egypt, part of it's in Libya. And so that creates some interesting points for us as potential buyers as well. There is not, apparently, according to the information that I've got, no evenly distribution of the tektites, but rather that in some places it's more concentrated deposits of it. So apparently to locate specimens, if you were to go out into this area of, let's remind you, 72,000 kilometres, you could be wandering around for a while trying to find those deposits. And it's obviously a very harsh environment where they're located, and not just about the climate, I might add. So when it comes to buying tips, and this is probably advice for myself, but once again, I'm putting it out there to you guys. If I go on the fact that we need to have inclusions within the tektite as part of substantiating the authenticity of the actual tektite, then we can go categorically, okay, that image that I've got in the middle, that's legitimate. Actually, there's something more than just the inclusions of the other minerals. It's apparently the pit marking on the external surface of the crystal as well, and that's because when you get molten glass impact sand, then as it starts to cool, well, yes, you end up with the pit marking on it. I also want to acknowledge once again the size of the right-hand image, where you've got that massive, great big tektite, which is just a beautiful colour. You can see that it's got the pitting on the surface of the crystal, and you can also see that it carries the inclusion. So undoubtedly, those two on the right-hand side are the genuine, the real deal. Now, the other image I've also sourced from De Barnstein site again, where what they were trying to do, or this person, I don't know if it's a male or a female, they're trying to show us that these are how you tell the difference between Moldavite, Golden Tektite or Libyan Desert Glass, and what is called Indochinite. Now, if you look at that Indochinite, you'll actually see that it's quite similar in shape to the videos that I did on Tibetan Tektite. And I think here, as far as differentiating as well, we can talk about that. In Australia, we have some of this black tektite as well, but the Moldavite is from Russia. You don't get it anywhere else. The Indochina actually comes from the Asian countries, and of course Australia is referred to as Australasia. So we get it here as well. Now, what else have I got here? One site, this is just sharing information with you that doesn't help to clarify, okay? One site said you don't really get fake Libyan glass because there's an abundance of it around. But other sites have said be very careful because there is fakes, okay? And what the sites that say that there are fakes when it comes to the desert glass is that if the glass or if the crystal is very bright coloured, particularly if it's banana skin coloured, then it's fake. It's dyed, okay? Genuine desert glass has the inclusions that we talk about. But then it goes on to say it has a smooth texture. I'm looking at my notes here. It's got a smooth texture, but it does say as compared to Moldavite and Indochinite, which actually, you know what? I think that looking at these images here, even with, because I've got a question mark over the authenticity of de Barnstein's image with the 3 because it doesn't look to have the inclusions in it. It doesn't seem to have any mineral content in it, but we can see, yes, it is smoother than the Indochina and it's smoother than the Moldavite. Now, when we look at the other 2 images that do have inclusions in it, we can see once again, yes, that they do not have the same pock marks, if you like, on the surface of the crystal. It is a much smoother crystal. So yeah, okay, I'll accept that one. And now I'll try and speed up with this, okay? So one of the reasons why I really want to know what is genuine and what isn't, and why it would be, because the general advice is if you're not sure, take it to a geo and get a geo to have a look at it. Well, that's fine. I don't want to have to fork out before I buy the crystal to learn that it's a fake, okay? That's where I sit with it. And this is because I have seen a whole range of prices for, I'm going to call it desert gold here, or golden tektite. I have seen them going very cheap on platforms such as Etsy. I mean, obviously they've got to be fake to be able to sell them that cheaply, unless, I'm making assumptions here. But the other thing is, when I started looking at other websites, I saw them for sale in the US for prices, like $3,000 US. Let me check here. Okay, so yes, there were some that were for sale in the US for $2,000 US. Now, of course, you're going to have to do a currency conversion if you don't live in the US, and there's going to be freight costs on top of that. But I have to, when I see these kind of price inflations, I have to question what's going on here, why are they charging so much? And my logic also runs to, I feel ethically, if they are selling these for $2,000 US, then how much are they paying for them? And I guarantee you they are not paying the equivalent, or, the markup for this must be like 3,000% or something. And the reason why I say this is because it will be the Libyans or the Egyptians that are out there finding these specimens, bringing them back for sale to the West. Now, the cost, or the average Egyptian and Libyan, their wages, their annual wage is like about $500 US. So, that should tell you that realistically, I doubt very much that the US people that are buying it are selling it or paying the finders, if you like, the rock hounds. I very much doubt that they're paying them $500 US for the specimens that they find, especially when they're quite common, apparently, for the people in Egypt and Libya to find. I actually should make the point here that when we talk about location, apparently it's Western Egypt, it's found there, which actually leads me on to I'll hold on to that thought for a moment, okay? Because the other thing I noticed too, that when I thought it was expensive to buy it from the US, I saw it for sale, oh my gosh, gee, on a British website where the payment is in pound, and it was jewellery. Certainly you would have a bit of an artist component go in there, but they were selling it for like £5,000 for these jewellery items. And so my questions come up again. Why is it so expensive? Why are they charging so much for what would actually probably be a crystal that is sourced fairly cheaply for them. And I think it's good that I asked these questions, because what I found out was, because I start using the logical part of my brain, which actually, if you buy Libyan Desert Glass, as called Libyan Desert Glass, from Libya, it's actually illegal, okay? You could purchase it, interestingly. You can go into Egypt and buy it perfectly legally. There's not an issue there. But the Libyan government has declared Golden Tektite as a national treasure. And so I would imagine that it's probably similar to Afghanistan, where if anybody tries to take it out of the country or sell it, there's going to be some pretty harsh penalties for those people. But at the same time, just bear in mind, it's exactly the same product on the other side of the border. You can just go to Egypt and get Libyan Desert Glass without any conflict, without putting anybody's life in danger or anything like that. You can just go there. But the problem is, when I say that you can go there and not put anybody's life in danger, the reality is that apparently the border where this stuff is found, over that 72,000 kilometres, is actually considered to be a dangerous area. It's certainly not safe for Westerners to go there. And it's supposed to be an area of conflict, basically border conflict, okay? So it's not safe. So perhaps that's part of why it's so expensive. And I've made a bit of a joke here that with Egypt, okay, so just to clarify here, you can take Golden Tektite out of Egypt as long as it's not part of an ancient relic or an artifact, because apparently it was popular with the pharaohs, okay? So if you happen to come across a cache of Egyptian artifacts, don't even think about taking them out, and especially don't think about taking them out if they've got the Golden Tektite with them. But anyway, so my joke was, if there's an Egyptian out there who's got access to this stuff and who is looking for an Australian distributor, I'd just like to say, well, hello, I am your woman, and I'm more than happy to start clearing a space in my house to hold that space for you to actually bring the stuff to Australia so I can find new homes for it, and I don't mind doing it, okay? I would consider it to be a right privilege and an absolute bonus, tongue in cheek, but nevertheless, I thought I'd just mention it. So I'm in two minds about going into all the detail because of the time factor in regard to the spiritual attributes, but I feel that I have to do the crystal justice, okay? So I'll try and be fast and cover. The slide says a lot, but just in case something is missed or it's not conveyed effectively, I'll go over it, okay? So each one of us is born with gifts, and these gifts we can either realize or we can leave and just not activate them, okay? And that includes our psychic gifts, it's our potential. And so part of the life journey is believed to be a pathway of claiming our gifts and not leaving them latent. A lot of people don't realize the power that lies within. So this crystal is believed to encourage a person to take the steps that supports them along the pathway, or it will support them to achieve their true potential and their life purpose. Now, that includes mastering certain aspects of human life. Of course, we have to get a certain level of mastery, not over other people, but over ourselves and our own reactions. We can continue to live life and leave these gifts stagnant, but when we decide to claim them, this is about aligning with divine will. This is when the transformation comes about, and this is when there becomes a transmutation of the energy around us. It involves a whole rebirth, a whole new way of living and being. And this is what we call the process of ascension, where we bring more of that light into our aura and we speed up the molecular rate of our own personal vibration so that we can attune to the higher realms. And this is how we actually get the access to the Akashic libraries, of course, and get the revelations. What have I got next? Just that there is this balance of our polarities. And when we talk about polarities, we often talk about yin or yang. That makes sense to people. We can be talking about the masculine and the feminine. But either way, it's about balancing. And when we are talking about male and female, this is because all of us, whether we are born male or female, we all carry attributes within ourselves that are either masculine or feminine. And of course, the masculine stuff is focused, I'm talking energy, okay, just in case there's any people that are sensitive to these kind of words. The masculine energy is one of protection and preservation, where the feminine energy is, of course, about the nurturing and nourishment. Now, the other thing, I seem to be repeating myself here, when it comes to the aura, there is the psychic protection, the sealing of the aura, which shields it to prevent any draining or any attachments of lower vibration, basically intruding within the aura. And of course, there's the activation of the psychic gifts. Now, when we talk about the psychic gifts, we're talking about clairs, telepathy, intuition, astral projection, psychic healing, remote viewing, psychic surgery, channeling, spirit communication, accessing obviously spiritual guides and guidance, and even channeling messages from spirit. Okay, so there's a whole range of them there, and probably more. I may have forgotten some of them. It could be the automatic writing. There could be past life exploration and healing. The one that I find is worth a really big reference is this karmic release, which is quite often it could be past life karma, or it could be karma that we have created for ourselves in this lifetime, where we are given an opportunity to address whatever we may have done wrong, and get a balance in there as well. So, of course, there's connecting to the ancient wisdom of the gods and goddesses, and even the creator, if you like. I would actually, I've made a mention here that Hermes must have been a student of Isis. What else have I got? Manifestation is one of the, it's supposed to act as a magnet and attract wealth, abundance, good fortune, and prosperity. You can understand why the pharaohs liked it. It's believed to bring opportunities to a person as well. So like successful business ventures. Kundalini, when you talk about Kundalini, you're talking about grounding and connecting, this balance where you're like the bobbin on a reel, if you like, the balance between heaven and earth. And it said recommended for mystics and healers to maximize life force. Basically, just about everything, okay? When you're talking about achieving potential, you're talking about everything. Now, I'm going to gloss over this slide and try and keep it limited with just the reminder that when we talk about using crystals for physical healing, there is no evidence base to it. So we would apply that caution as I do, which is do not disengage from your treatment planner, your doctor, GP specialist, whatever. Don't disengage from them, but certainly you can carry or wear your crystal as part of your treatment. It's not going to do any harm, okay? Now, when you look at the slide that I've got here, you can see that there's a whole range of claims about how a person's physical well-being can benefit from working with, using, or wearing Golden Tektite. If you've got a question or a thought, or you want to add more to this, then by all means, please put your comments up. You might know somebody, it might be your grandmother, she had a piece and it helped her with X and Y. We would all love to know that stuff. So the same caution applies when it comes to the emotional and psychological benefits of a crystal as well, which is there's no evidence base to it. At the end of the day, you're going to be the best judge of whether or not it helps the way you feel and what you think anyway, as will be the people that are around you that may observe any changes. But you can see on this slide here that there's a whole range of benefits as well that ultimately lead to new ways of thinking and being. That's the whole rebirth stuff going, that is going to attract and bring in far more positive qualities to you, your character, to your life, the way you live your life. And we're talking about a crystal that is actually one that encourages leadership and stepping into your power. Actually, I've got to make a mention of this. Let me just check my notes. Okay. What I have noted here, because obviously I do these transcripts, is that when it comes to knowledge, many of us walk our path going, I believe, I've got faith, I hope, right? I hope, which are admirable, but there's also a lack of conviction. If we're hoping and believing, we're not really knowing. Now, there's something about as we strengthen our connection and step into our power that we go beyond faith and hope, and it becomes this personal inner knowledge that, of course, we can't turn around and say to people, we can't convince them, we've got no proof or evidence, but I know there is a creator God. I can turn around and say that to you or to a skeptic, and they will turn around and go, well, you believe. Okay, yeah, you can think I believe, but in my heart, I know. okay? But I don't need to explain it, if that makes sense. Okay, so it transforms belief into knowledge as well. That's one part of it. The other thing is too that when we become more confident, and we develop this inner knowledge, okay, we step into our personal power. And so there is something for me when I look at the Golden Tektite that says, it conveys this message of, I'm not frightened of being a powerful person, okay? Because the thing is, becoming a powerful person means sometimes that you've got to put your head on the line. That's not a very good description. That's something that we say colloquially in Australia, is that if you overextend and step outside of your role, people will turn around and say that you're putting your head on the line, lining it up. Actually, you become a target because you're standing up for something at a time when you should be sitting down, I guess is a better way of saying it. So it can be quite fearful, the thought of actually stepping up and standing up in our personal power and having some integrity. It takes some courage, but at the same time, that is the courage of convictions. And so basically, what the Golden Tektite does, is my understanding, is that it helps a person to stand up for what they believe in. And to not be frightened of being powerful, to let go of any fears of being powerful. The other thing to make mention of before I go on to the next slide is, besides the fact there's a whole lot of stuff here on the slide for you to read at your leisure, is that apparently Golden Tektite, I think I ran out of space on the slide. If you're a person that has a lot of nightmares, or one of your kids has a lot of nightmares, and you just happen to have a piece of Golden Tektite, put it under their pillow, because it's supposed to provide protection and ensure a good night's sleep, okay? People that suffer from shyness, they would benefit from it. And apparently it brings a more playful, joyous attitude to life. And that's what I associate actually with sun worship, to be honest, the joy of life. I feel it brings back the joy of life, as well as helping this self-realization. Now, I'm pretty sure if you do your research online and try and find what chakras are associated with Golden Tektite, you're going to see variations. This is normal, by the way, that people have differences of opinions and beliefs when it comes to this kind of stuff, and that's largely down to personal experience. But anyway, what you will see is that a lot of people will say, based on my research, is that it is associated with the solar plexus, the sacral chakra, and the brow. So you're talking about the orange, the yellow, and the indigo. Now, I'm not saying no, okay? I'm not saying I disagree with them. What I believe, and my opinion, is that it's more than that, okay? Obviously, because of the yellow, it's very much associated with the solar plexus. I actually feel that it would shield that chakra, because that's the chakra of faith, power, hope, belief. You know what I mean? It's all sitting in there. That's the learning. So I'm aware of what is called a gold shielding that can go to the solar plexus, and I believe it would shield that one. Now, the other thing is, though, that of course I believe it works on all of them, because when you start talking about the activation of the Kundalini, this is not a good image, but either way, you can see that the root or base chakra, Kundalini, is situated basically just behind there. There's another chakra that's finally that's close to the anus, and that is actually where the Kundalini is situated. So when we activate the Kundalini, we're activating the entire brain, backbone, spinal area, if you like. But it goes further. It goes up through the rainbow chakra, which is about a foot above the head, the crown, and down through the earth star, which is about a foot below your feet if you were standing up. And so Kundalini runs from as I understand it, I'm open to correction, runs from the core of the earth. Once we activate it, goes up through the base, through the backbone, if you like, the spine, up through the crown, above through the rainbow chakra, and infinity above. So this is why I say it's like the bobbin on the string. When we're in balance, heaven and earth, if you want to use those terms, then Our aura is like that little bobbin on the string, suspended there in perfect balance and harmony between earth and infinity, shall we say. So I'm going to stick to, I believe it's with all chakras. It activates and benefits all of the chakras. So realistically, the way that we would use Golden Tektite is going to depend on your purpose, what you aim to do with it, what you're trying to work with as far as maximising the potential and the attributes. I definitely, as much as you can wear it as a piece of jewellery, I'd be quite happy to be wearing it as a piece of jewellery. Let me give you the tip. But I would not be wearing it as a bracelet. Okay, I'd be too worried about breaking it. And if you've got the really smaller pieces, because I see some of them are actually quite small, they would be actually very easy to lose. So you would want to have it somehow protected that you can not lose it. Okay, so the other thing to make mention of here is you don't need to have a big piece of tektite to be able to receive the benefits of the attributes. So if you were going to meditate with a small piece of the golden tektite, I would recommend probably putting it into some form of pouch. So let's say in my mind, in my dream, I managed to access some of this not Tibetan, golden tektite. I have some organza bags here, and I would probably put it in a small bag so that I don't lose it, and so that it's actually protected, but it's not closed off, if that makes sense, because I have lost very small crystals in the past, and if I have to pay a fortune for this stuff, I really don't like the idea of losing it and throwing money away and potentially vacuuming it up and having to go through the dust bag of my vacuum cleaner trying to find it. Obviously, you'll be able to tell I have done that in the past when I have misplaced a crystal. The other thing is, yes, okay, you might be able to get a piece that's big enough to fit into a macrame necklace setting like what I've got, or maybe you can afford to buy that really nice, expensive jewelry that they're selling. Certainly would encourage meditation and holding. Certainly, actually, do you know a big one I would be tempted to do was, if I had one of these ornamental type ones, is to put that in my bedroom beside my bed at night time. Or if I've got a smaller piece, once again in a pouch and under the pillow, maybe as part of getting dream messages and communication through my dream state. That would always be very effective. And I would imagine, actually, if you do the crystal healing and you do gridding, psychic surgery and that kind of thing, you might want to wear a piece yourself during the process, or pop some in your bra or whatever. Just remember not to drop it when you take it out. And the other thing is too, that you could probably put it over a person's solar plexus if there was power and victim issues going on. You could probably support them that way or use them that way. And of course, you could always do palm stones if you ever find any big enough. I haven't seen any around as palm stones, but I'd like to have one. So, as far as being a messenger goes, or the oracle of Tibetan tektite, there's so much going on with it, because really, I guess we would call it a master crystal, actually, that it's difficult to condense down. But when I was reflecting on this as a message for you guys, I felt that my guides were showing me an image of raising your eyes to the sun, and allowing the love to flow through you. Now, in many ways, I felt that it symbolized this business of when you think things just aren't going well, you've got problem upon problem. There is what a lot of the religious teachers teach us, which is, take your eyes off the problems, focus your energy, your gratitude, your love, and everything onto the Creator. And when we do that, then automatically we start to align our will with Creator will. We release this resistance, and it's not so much a surrender. Surrender is in there. When we talk about surrendering to divine will, we let go of that. There's a saying, I think, along the lines of not my will, divine will. And that is choosing to live the divine will, the divine path, the divine plan. So I guess in a way, actually, yes, it is about surrendering. But as we do so, just keeping the focus on the source, the Creator, focus on thoughts of love, and recognize we are all powerful people, every single one of us that's on the planet. And all we have to do is align with divine will and embrace that, surrender to the higher power. And that doesn't mean losing or giving up something. When we don't give up our individuality once we surrender to divine will, we actually, I guess, reclaim it in some ways. We become true to ourselves, and we're all manifestations, shall we say, of the Creator. It's a little bit complex. I think it's one of those things you got to do it to feel it and to allow it to happen. And just the reminder, I've put a note in here that when we talk about claiming into our power or stepping into our power and becoming a powerful person, that is completely separate from concepts that we might have currently, that to be a powerful person, we've got to be able to influence other people. We've got to be able to tell them what to do, and they need to listen to us because we know better than them. It's not about that. True power is actually fairly quiet. It's fairly confident. It's not actually domineering. It actually respects the fact that we have differences and that we're all individuals. I don't think I can add to that. Just a leader isn't always telling people. In fact, they're never telling people what to do. They're showing people through their actions and through their integrity. So step into your power, raise your own personal vibration, become a person of integrity, and then show others through your example. So when it comes to caring for Libyan Desert Glass or Golden Tektite, as whatever we want to call it, the bottom line is, with all tektites, as I've said before, they're reasonably hardy. So I would imagine it would be the same for the Golden Tektite, and by that I mean you could wash it. I mean, look, if it's in the earth and it's exposed to the elements, it's going to cope with a real lot at home. But obviously you're never going to throw your tektites into the fire because that would just be insane, especially if it's your Golden Tektite. But you could wash it. If it got dirty or grimy or whatever, I'm sure it will cope with being put underwater or having a good clean with a soft toothbrush, things like that. As with all crystals, though, I just, rule of thumb, would not expose them to chemicals, harsh chemicals. I wouldn't put them in those special cleansing baths or whatever. They don't need them. If it's set in jewellery, yeah, okay, you might need to take it down to a jeweller's and get it professionally cleaned to keep the metal settings in peak condition. But generally speaking, as a mainstream care, not really a problem. When it comes to the metaphysical components, though, I do question, because I have no experience, obviously, of desert gold, but I know with Tibetan Tektite, that is a soaker. It absorbs and it needs to be cleared and cleansed on a regular basis so that it remains in peak performance. So I would assume, without having used desert gold, that you would need to do the same with that, which is, for me, selenite. For you, it might mean smudging, it might mean saging, it might mean exposure, perhaps to the rain, to the full moon, whatever. I don't think it would do it any harm. The only other thing, and I would be unwilling to try it, being in Australia, is to see how well it holds up with the colour if you expose it to our brilliant sunlight. Now, I imagine the sunlight in the Libyan desert would be quite harsh as well, and so it would be interesting to know, speaking to the locals, whether or not the ones that are on the surface actually lose their colour through exposure to sunlight. Based on that, I just wouldn't put mine on the windowsill or whatever. I would take very good care of it. And beyond that, I'm interested to hear your thoughts and feedback. I think perhaps if you've got a piece of it, if you know somebody that's got it, you can let us know based on your experience. So, my friends, I did actually warn you that it might be a long one today, and it is slightly longer than normal because obviously I still waffle. But anyway, that is about all the information I can share with you today. This particular video, I'm going to very much be reliant on your feedback as part of informing my buying decisions. I'd be really interested to hear what you've got to say. But for now, though, I'm going to say, look, love you, leave you. Thank you for being part of my journey, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.